Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again. This is Peter, you're watching Thailand Bound, and I'm coming to you from a very, very hot Bangkok. It's extremely hot out there today, as is most days this time of year. We've got about a week before Songkran comes along, so I probably won't be venturing out too much. Don't want to get wet too often. Okay, just before I get into the stories, there were one or two people who mentioned the background noise, and I did touch on this last week. It's the air conditioner because, as I said, it's very, very hot. But you know what? I listened to the stories back last week. I was at a loose end. I put some headphones in and I was just listening to the stories, and you can hardly hear it actually. It's because I'm talking most of the time, it's very, very faint. So if the noise of the air conditioner actually bothers you, apologies, but I'm not going to turn it off because it's very hot and I'd last about 10 minutes. Okay, right, let's get into these two stories, and hopefully the air conditioning won't break down while I'm reading them.
สวัสดีค่ะ
I have been to Thailand many times, but I always say it takes at least 3 visits to learn the basics, such as how to deal with bar girls, avoid scams, and know where to go and where not to go. And by where not to go, I don't just mean safety, as Pattaya is relatively safe. I mean it in terms of money. For example, when on Walking Street, do what it says at the entrance of Walking Street, keep walking. Soi 6 is the same, of course. Go and take a look, and it's a sight to see, but keep walking or you'll get ripped off. Now, I'm not a cheap Charlie, as they say, but I am sensible with my money. Therefore, I refuse to be ripped off. But as I mentioned earlier, it takes time to find the quieter areas that still offer the same options as the 2 areas I mentioned, but are lighter on the wallet. In Pattaya, you can spend as much or as little money as you want, but we must understand that we are in charge of what we do. Let me tell you, my first visit to Thailand was truly a shock to the system. My friend and I stayed at the Diamond Beach Hotel just off Walking Street. We arrived in the mid-afternoon and were unloading our luggage from the taxi. Suddenly we hear, "Hello, hello, where are you from, handsome man? Do you want to drink?" The whole lot, you know the sort of stuff they come out with. I'd never experienced anything like this in my life. Anyway, we checked into the hotel, had a quick shower and went out. We had a few beers at the carousel bar, surrounded by ladies who in my eyes looked like supermodels. We then had the mandatory look around Walking Street, had a meal and took a walk down Beach Road. I was in heaven. This was my first night in Pattaya. It's pointless to tell you about the rest of my holiday because those who have visited Pattaya will know. But I will say we spent a lot of time in and around Soi 7 and Soi 8. After the first time, we decided to go again, but we stayed in the Pig and Whistle on Soi 7. It was reasonably priced and the food was quite nice. The following year, we stayed over the road at the Destiny 7 Hotel. Because I don't drink during the day, I like staying here because they had a nice pool and there was a 7-Eleven next door. Happy days. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, you eventually learn the ropes. The ladies are mainly full of BS, so eventually you start talking the same talk as they do. I'm sure we've all done it. I've been many things while talking to these girls: a retired teacher, a shop owner, and I've got 2 cars and a big house on the hill back home in the UK. In reality though, I worked in a warehouse and lived in rented accommodation, but hey, they play the game, so I played the game too. But they're not stupid. They've heard it all before. Remember, all you see in Pattaya is fantasy. It's what is being sold to you, so sell it back, I say. I've seen girls who wait with their 2-week millionaires for his taxi to the airport, only to begin his journey home in tears as he leaves the city. Later that same night, they would be with a new 2-week millionaire. This, without going into all the details, is a brief summary of my first 3 visits to Pattaya. I would like to say Thailand, but Pattaya bears no resemblance to the normal, beautiful and friendly people of the rest of Thailand. After 3 visits to Pattaya, I decided it was enough for me. It was like being locked inside a sweet shop. You would eat a few, then you'd be sick. So at that time, I decided I would not return to Pattaya. I always relate to the advice an Australian man gave me. He said, if you can smile on the plane on your way to Thailand and smile again on the plane on the way home, then you've had a good trip. Personally, I find it very true. I've been 3 times now, played the game with only a few minor scratches, but now is the time to say Been there, done it. Little did I know that trying to play the game in the future would come back to bite me on the backside in a big way that I could never imagine. I did return to Thailand several more times, and I visited Phuket, Hua Hin, Krabi, among a few places. But I never met or found, may I say, wife material, which deep down I wanted to find. Oh well, I kept working back home in the UK, and instead I holidayed in the usual Brit places like Spain, Turkey, Greece, etc. A few years had passed and I started to feel lonely. I wanted a good and happy relationship with a lady, no matter which country she came from. One evening, while browsing on my laptop, I came across a site called Thai Friendly. Intrigued, I decided to take out a 3-month subscription. I contacted several ladies and a few ladies contacted me. At first, it was okay, but I wasn't interested in a lady who had had kids. Also, there were the usual scamming culprits on the site. I talked to one or two for about a month, but either they were not what I was looking for, or to be fair, I was not what they were looking for. So I stopped looking for a while. One day, when I came home from work, I seen that a lady had shown interest in me. Those of you who use or have used Thai Friendly will know that this is what happens when someone likes your profile. The lady called Cop was stunning, with a profile that said she had a master's degree and was the head of English at a school in the south of Thailand, about a 6-hour drive from Bangkok. I thought she looked amazing, and I had the feeling that she could be an ideal wife. However, I wondered how a lady with a master's degree and a highly respected job in Thailand could be interested in a warehouse worker from a tough city in the northwest of England. Despite my doubts, I decided to send her a message back and show interest in her. The next morning, Cop replied to me with a very nice and polite message. We talked about our time difference and agreed on a time that would suit us both to talk, because it was winter here in the UK, Thailand 7 hours plus. The next day we exchanged messages and Cop and I started talking on the Line app. She wanted to see me on camera, so feeling nervous, I called her. She seemed very happy and said she can see I'm real. We then exchanged messages every day and small messages at random times. One day, Cop asked me about my work in the UK. I was afraid that if I told her I worked in a warehouse, she wouldn't be interested in me anymore. So I instantly said the first thing that came into my mind: I was a retired policeman. To my surprise, she seemed very happy with my answer. After much thought, I thought there would be no way to find out that I wasn't a policeman in the past. However, I was wrong, and the consequences would be very bad a few months later. As the weeks went by, we video called each other every day and grew closer, developing genuine feelings for each other. She was the most beautiful person, both inside and out, that I'd ever met. We were falling in love without a doubt. She never talked about money, and we never discussed lovemaking. This doesn't happen with a true Thai lady who has been taught values and traditional Thai values. One afternoon, she messaged me saying that there was something she needed to talk to me about. She revealed that because she used to be in the police, she felt the need to tell me. She said that she would understand if I never wanted to contact her again. I was shocked and thought that Cop had deceived me. I had fallen in love with her. Despite this, I replied asking her to tell me. An hour later, she shared that her brother was a politician and was involved with the mafia. While I knew nothing about the Thai mafia, I naively believed that they were only those who owned a few bars in Pattaya or Bangkok. I told her that her family situation wouldn't affect our relationship. For the first time, she said she loved me, and I reciprocated. I was thrilled and couldn't wait to meet her in person. The next day, I asked my boss for 3 weeks off in January. He agreed, and I booked my ticket to Thailand through Emirates Airline. I shared the itinerary with Cop, and she called me in tears of joy. We were both excited about our upcoming meeting and started talking about marriage. We knew it sounded crazy, but we were in love, and that was all that mattered. As January approached, we talked about where I would stay. Without hesitation, she invited me to stay with her at her house, which was a 2-hour drive from her family's home. She said she saw me as her future husband and wasn't afraid because she had never slept with a man or been to a bar. I felt like the luckiest man in the world to meet such a lady. When I arrived in Bangkok, we arranged to meet at exit door number 8. As I walked towards it, my heart was pounding. Then as I approached, she lightly tugged on my arm, and there she was. I went to give her a kiss, but she linked arms with me instead. We walked towards the taxi area below arrivals, but she said that her brother had sent a car to take us to her home. We got into a top-of-the-range Mercedes and the driver put my luggage in the trunk. Cop and I held hands and talked the whole way to her home. She had bought food and drinks for me and we were excited to spend time together. She told me that her family wanted to meet the following week, which made me nervous. I noticed that the driver was watching me in the rear view mirror, which made me uncomfortable. However, I assumed it was because I was a foreigner. Okay, out of respect, I'm not going to talk about the first week that I stayed at Cop's home, but everything was perfect. She took me to many nice places, we joked like two teenagers, and we were in love. What more does a man need? I remember one evening I asked her why she had never married. She then, for the first time, told me that she had a lot of land, she was the owner of the home where we were staying in, and she was the owner of her mum's home. She said she had never met a man who could match what she had, so she never married. She said her family once introduced her to a man, but because he was in the mafia, she didn't like him. I was beginning to worry about meeting her family, but could not think about anything going wrong. When we got married, she would come to England with me, and I would probably only see them once per year. We drove to the district where her family lived and checked into a hotel about 5 miles away. We then visited her mum, who was such a nice and very welcoming lady. She did not want to go out for a meal and she cooked for us. I nearly died when Cop said it was told. She looked at my face and she and her mum laughed at me, but I have to admit it was nice. Later that night, Cop's sister came with her husband and it was a really good night. I began to think the mafia was an exaggeration. We eventually drove back to the hotel and Cop said, "Tomorrow we meet my brother. He wants to look at you." I have to admit I was nervous. I said to Cop, "Does your brother drink?" She said yes, he likes whiskey. I said, "Before we meet I'll buy him a bottle," and she smiled and was happy I did so. The next evening we arrived at her brother's home. Now by Thai standards this house was pure luxury with 2 top-of-the-range cars on the drive. We walked around the back and there sitting outside was Cop's brother and his wife with 2 Thai men. Cop introduced me to him. He certainly didn't seem like the friendliest of men and he was definitely checking me out with his eyes. He talked to Cop for a while in what seemed to be a business-like manner and Cop was behaving like she was subservient to him. But I put it down to Thai hierarchy within the family. The 2 Thai men disappeared and I then presented him with a bottle of whiskey I'd bought for him. He was asking me questions and Cop was translating for me. He was obviously suspicious of me and I was trying not to look or feel uncomfortable. He disappeared for about 15 minutes and the mood with Cop and his wife became more relaxed. I could hear her brother talking to someone on the phone inside the house, but I didn't think anything of it. He came back outside and poured himself a whiskey. He then said something to Cop and she looked nervous. She said to me, "My brother says you don't look like an ex-police officer." I said, "How must a policeman look?" Cop then told her brother what I said and I felt like he thought I disrespected him. About 30 minutes later, 2 highly decorated policemen arrived, wearing more medals than Colonel Gaddafi. I just knew my lie had been uncovered. 2 other men appeared from nowhere but were told to stay in the background. One of the high-ranking policemen spoke to me and they took great joy in seeing the shock on my face as he spoke perfect English. I was embarrassed and scared. He asked me, "Why have you tried to deceive your friend's sister and her family?" Stupidly, I said, "What do you mean?" At that point, Cop took her hand off my knee under the table. He said, "Do not lie. We knew you were never a police officer." I tried to tell them the truth, but Cop's brother didn't believe me. He ordered Cop and the 2 men to leave. At that moment, I didn't know where they went. The police sat down and stared at me. Cop's brother pulled out a small handgun from his bag and put it against the back of my head. I was terrified. He said something to the police and they told me, "You are very lucky. Collect all your things from the hotel and tonight you will be taken to the Bangkok airport." I didn't dare mention that I also had things at Cop's sister's home because it might have pushed him over the edge. He pulled the gun away and I thought he would kill me. After a long time, Cop returned and said everything was in the car. Luckily, I had my passport, money and tickets in the bag I had with me. Cop looked at me with hurt in her eyes and asked, "Why did you pretend with me?" I said, "I'm sorry." She said, "Now I will walk the path and never look back at you." With that, she left and I never saw or heard from her again. The two men who had taken Cop to the hotel gestured for me to get into the car. Cop's brother spoke to the police and they warned me that if I ever returned to Thailand, he would know and he would kill me. After a nerve-wracking journey, I saw the signs for the airport and felt relieved when the car pulled up to departures. My ticket wasn't valid for another 12 days, but I didn't care. The driver pulled up and the other Thai man took my bag out of the boot. He didn't speak, but looked deeply into my eyes. I was still shaken up, but I didn't care now because I was at the airport and there were CCTV cameras everywhere. It was 04:30 in the morning and there wasn't a soul at the Emirates check-in. I walked upstairs and the Emirates office wasn't open either. I was still shaking inside, so I decided to go outside for a cigarette. As I walked towards the designated smoking area, I saw a familiar face. It was one of my guards, and he said very abrasively, "Stupid Farang." I said no and walked back into the airport safely. Unfortunately, when Emirates opened up, there were no seats available that day, but they put me on a standby after I told them a family member was very ill and I must get back. Luckily, I got a flight back to the UK that afternoon. As the aircraft took off, I thought game over, and as we climbed into the clouds, I took one last look at Thailand below and said goodbye. I never returned again. I often wonder how my Thai angel is and what she is doing now. And I often wonder how things might have been if I had told the truth about my work. I guess I learned how to lie after visiting Pattaya too. If I can give some advice from my story, then there are 2 points I would like to make. When in Pattaya, play the game. The bar girls play the game very well. So be forever vigilant and play the game too. Also, think about the bar girls you are falling in love with. If she works at the bar 7 nights per week and say gets the bare minimum of 5 customers per week, in brackets, I'm being generous here, do your maths. That's 260 men per year and probably more. So is she really wife material? I think not. Do not do what I did. If you are lucky enough to be given the chance to settle down with a true Thai lady who holds a true Thai morals, do not make the same mistake as I did, because these ladies are not fools. They are very well educated, and if you tell them just one lie, no matter what you say to them, they will think everything you have said is a lie too. Well, this is my story. I hope you will share it. There are, I feel, some very strong messages and warnings to others, and if it helps only one person in the future, then at least it's done some good. So I don't think the guy did a lot wrong really. I mean, he'd fallen in love with this nice, beautiful girl. He wanted to impress her. He wasn't over-exaggerating stories. He was just a little bit, maybe ashamed is not the right word, but he didn't want to tell her he was a menial worker. He worked in a warehouse, so he just picked the first job that sprung out of mind. Now, very unlucky for him, she was connected to these policemen and this so-called mafia brother, and it all went wrong. I don't believe the Thai guy would have, I don't believe he would have shot him or killed him, as he said in the story. It's a great shame, really, because it could have been a good story that worked out well. He just picked the wrong profession, and it just happened to all go wrong. Okay. The only other thing I'll say on that story, the hotel he was talking about, the Diamond Beach Hotel, which is it's in Soy Diamond, just off Walking Street. Classic hotel, been around since the 60s. It's where all the vets used to stay when they were on R&R from the Vietnam War. And I was down there just a few months ago, and it's just closed down. All the windows are blacked out. They've got signs up there to hide the name of the hotel. I actually peered through the windows to have a look at the lobby, and I remember thinking, as I was looking through the window, how much history that hotel holds. You know, from the 60s when the GIs used to stay there, and then all the stories through the 70s and 80s and 90s, and now it's finally closed down. And what a great store, what a great place to hold memories. If only rooms could talk. Okay, right, that's enough talking from me. Let's go straight into story number 2. I am recently divorced and have lost much faith in the quality of American women who are single and over 35. In my opinion, beautiful women in the US over the age of 35 are probably single for a reason. I do not see myself ever getting married again and am content with filling my remaining days with fun and casual relationships. My friend told me I need to experience life abroad if I am lacking faith in American women. I thought to myself, damn, I knew I was friends with this guy for a reason. What a great idea. Without delay, I booked my plane ticket and hotel accommodations, and the 2 weeks I now needed to wait until my departure was starting to seem like an eternity. Finally, the day came where I left for Bangkok. I wish there was an easier way to get to Bangkok. The length of the flights were the worst part of my trip. I had an overnight layover in New York. As I left my New York hotel for dinner, I was asked by a man on the street if I wanted to buy a Rolex. I looked at him and saw the watch in his hand. It looked identical to my real Rolex watch back home. I was actually quite impressed with the detail the watch had, and unless you are a fine jeweler or you own a Rolex, you would probably never know. He would sell it to me for $80. I told the guy that I wasn't in the market for a watch, but if he wanted to sell it to me for $40, maybe we could do business. He didn't say anything and looked away. I figured he got his feelings hurt and I began walking away. He said, wait, okay, I'll sell it to you for $40. I had contemplated bringing my real watch with me, but never having been to Thailand, I didn't know if it would draw the wrong attention, so I left it at home. This proved to be a wise move. Nonetheless, I now had a fake one to wear on my trip, so I didn't care. Here I was in Bangkok and I just checked into my hotel. After hearing your stories, which I listened to on the flight over, I felt like a seasoned vet. I had a paper copy of my passport. I chose not to take pictures of my passport with my phone out of fear that I should have a run-in with the police. I would possibly have my phone confiscated by the police, as they had confiscated passports in some of your stories. With my valuables locked in the hotel safe, I left the hotel with no destination in mind. I was going to ride the breeze in Bangkok and see where it took me. My goal was to look for beautiful women everywhere I went, and that wasn't hard to do. There were pretty women everywhere. I found myself at Hooters Nana. As I was quite familiar with the Hooters brand, I was talking up some waitress and she was fixated at my watch. Every time she came to the table, but never mentioned it in words. After a few beers, I began walking down the street and found myself in a beer bar. It was early and there weren't many people there yet. I was speaking to the mama-san. I asked if she had any new girls of legal age that worked for her who hadn't been tainted by the bar girl life yet. I'm just going to interrupt the story a little bit here. There's some building work going outside. I can hear it. I don't think it's going to come across too bad on reading the stories, but you might pick it up, so I think it's just as well to advise you. But I'll press on with the story. She explained she had a girl recently start working who was from just outside Chiang Mai, but she had not agreed to be bar fined yet. I sat there drinking beers, and when the woman showed up, she was introduced to me and was very pretty, funny and polite. We laughed over a few beers and she kept rubbing my arm and kept running her fingertips over the watch on my wrist. I began thinking to myself, wow, how easily these women are fixated their attention on my fake watch. I asked if she was interested in being bar fined and spend a couple of days with me, and she explained she wasn't ready yet. I told her I understood and that I was going to move to another seat and I would talk to her in a little bit. As the evening approached, these two women showed up to work that were absolutely stunning. One looked to be built for speed and the other was built for durability. I smiled at them and they walked by and they soon came back to talk to me. A few ladies' drinks later, we were laughing. One kept holding my hand playing with my watch and the other kept whispering in my ear. I began to think to myself, first, I am taking a fake Rolex with me next time I come to Thailand, and what are the chances I can bar fine both girls tonight, as I didn't want to have to choose between speed and durability. As a typical American man, I want both, so I asked them what their long time bar cost was and offered them both more if they would come back to my hotel. They wasted no time agreeing to do so. I was going to do my best to wear both of these girls out. After a night of fun, All three of us passed out in exhaustion. The next morning, I woke up laying in the middle of a king-size bed. I had two beautiful naked women draped over me and thought to myself, do I really have to go back to the US? I woke both of them up and asked if they wanted to get breakfast. While one got up to shower, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to shower as well. All three of us were in the shower together and the fun from last night continued. Finally, we were all cleaned up and left for breakfast. I said goodbye to Speed and Durability, to which the nicknames they were both forever have in my mind until I draw my last breath. I was glad I didn't have to choose at the bar, because after an evening with both, and both having lived up to their new nicknames, I still couldn't pick just one. After I said goodbye, I ventured back to my room. The housekeeper, who was plenty beautiful in her own right, just got done with cleaning my room and changing my sheets. I needed some more rest, as the 5 hours sleep had just not been enough after the night of fun I'd just experienced. That day, I took in the sights and chatted up a woman who was having lunch at a nearby restaurant. She was much older than Speed and Durability, but still gorgeous and carried herself with class. I asked what she did for work and she changed the subject. I told her I wasn't there to cast judgment on her for her line of work. I just wanted to get to know her better. She changed the subject again, and I didn't want to be so pushy, so we carried on some more. I asked what it would take for her to show me around Bangkok. She explained she was not ready to give out her phone number or Facebook, but if I was serious, I would meet her the next day at the same time in the same restaurant. I smiled and she paid her bill and left. I love sushi, and for dinner found some of the best sushi I'd ever had. I visited a few beer bars that afternoon and wasn't pleased with my choice, primarily because I had spent the previous evening with two perfect 10s. I figured I would return to the same bar, as I had fun there even before I met the two stunners the day before. As I sat at the bar, the younger girl who I had first brought ladies' drinks for the previous day came and sat next to me again. She was so shy compared to the other two, but was very sweet and smelled like a succulent flower. After a few drinks, I told her that I would still like to take her out and spend some time with her. She agreed to go and I paid her bar fine and we left. On the way out, Speed and Durability spotted me, and as I smiled at them holding the new girl's hand, they looked at each other like WTF. I could see the jealousy on their faces. The new girl and I spent the evening gallivanting around Bangkok at night. We made our way back to the hotel, where we fooled around before we went to bed. It wasn't the passionate, intense workout from the night before, but much more intimate. I woke up the next morning as she was getting out of bed to use the bathroom. As I looked over, her phone screen was on a jeweller's website. She was looking up how much my watch cost. I pretended not to have seen it, but I can imagine what she was thinking when she learned my watch cost over $35,000. She had no idea it was a fake. We said goodbye, and I was then resting in my room checking my emails, and I looked down at my computer. When I saw the time on the screen, I thought, oh hell, I have to be at the restaurant for lunch in 15 minutes. I jumped in my shoes and ran downstairs and briskly walked to the restaurant from the day before. There she was, the older woman from yesterday. She told me her name was Anong. We sat and had lunch. She explained she had to get back to work, but would be happy to spend the day tomorrow, show me around Bangkok if I was still interested, as she would have the day off. She again said she wasn't willing to give out her information, but if I wanted to take her up on her offer to meet here the next morning at 9, I promised her I would be there. Her unwillingness to give me her contact information or tell me what she did for work was adding a level of mystery that was rather intriguing. Back to the beer bar, and I was pleased, thinking at how my life in Thailand is going. I must be dreaming. As I walked into the bar, the same one, I tend to be a creature of habit, I was greeted by Speed and Durability. They explained that the new girl told them what my watch was worth and how she only went with me because she was going to ask for it. I'm thinking, a fake gold watch with a blue face and diamond bezel, I have become a prime attraction to these girls. That night, Durability spent the evening chatting with another customer, as the bar was pretty busy. and I was conversing with Speed. After yet again paying the bar fine, I was ready to take Speed back to the hotel and see just how well she can run the race by herself. Again, she lived up to her nickname, a young filly that could run in the Kentucky Derby. The next morning, I had set my alarm early so I could shower and meet Nong. Speed wasn't enthusiastic about getting up and out so early, but I told her I had some Zoom meetings to do on my computer and needed the place to myself. She left. I met with Nong. She was right on time. I asked her where we were going and she suggested we get out of the city to visit a couple of places. I paid for a rental car but asked if she would drive, as in the US we drive on the right side of the road. She agreed. At the first place we went, she insisted on paying because I had paid for the rental car. As it turned out, we kept taking turns paying everywhere we went. I was thinking, wow, a fairly attractive woman who, unlike the others, is not with me just for money. My first mistake since arriving in Thailand. We spent the entire day and into the evening with each other. She got a phone call after she hung up. She said it was her younger sister who wanted to have a few drinks with us. I thought, okay. The girl showed up. She was a solid 9 and looked to be about 15 years younger than Nong. The drinks were flowing. I had no idea where we were. I was pleased to know we had returned the rental car while Nong was in the bathroom. Her sister, whom never told me her name, asked if I was willing to go back to her apartment for more drinks. I wasted no time saying yes. As soon as Nong returned, we left. A short walk to the apartment later, followed by a few beers, Nong and her sister were arguing about which one had better physical features. They asked my opinion and I remember telling them in order to properly judge the two of them, they would both have to undress so I could take another look. They both did, and after undressing they began kissing me before I could give my opinion. I was thinking, holy hell, thank goodness I didn't have to declare one of them the loser. The next morning we woke up to Nong's sister screaming, "You both need to get up, my husband is on his way home." In a mad dash we were dressed and out the door. I said goodbye to Nong outside my hotel while I was still drunk from the night before. I was halfway to my room when I realised my watch was not on my wrist. I couldn't call Nong as I didn't have her number. I had no idea where her so-called sister's apartment was. There we have it. It was a setup, but I laughed knowing I scored both women and it cost me a $40 fake Rolex. I spent the rest of my evenings in Thailand at the same beer bar. I told the girls there that a diamond fell out of it and I cracked the screen the night before and it was in the jeweller's getting repaired. I learned a couple of things during my trip: that Thai women are great lovers, liars and reasonable company. I will be back in Thailand in the future and each time I will bring along a fake Rolex. Well, I don't know why he has to bring along a fake Rolex. I mean, there's more of them here than there are anywhere else in the world. There's different quality Rolexes. So if that's what you want to do, you know, just come here and buy one. But another lesson learned, I mean, that was quite clever, that scam, wasn't it? Because what she done, she made out she was, Miss Goody Two Shoes because she doesn't give out her telephone number. But really, the reason for that is because she didn't want to be tracked once a watch was missing. Lesson learned. Okay, right, guys, that's it once again for the stories this week. Just a reminder, tonight is going to be the first evening of my members only stream. I'm going to be doing the regular stream as normal. It will be posted out and advertised, and then I'll be having a 15-minute break. Then it will be a members only stream. If you'd like to join me in that stream, I've got a special guest coming in. It's very, very cheap to join the membership and you get access to early videos and that sort of thing. It'd be great to see you in the live stream and the members live stream. Okay, until then, thanks a lot for watching and I'll see you real soon.